If being a doctor paid $20,000 per year, $30,000 per year, guess what? 95% of people wouldn't be doing it. Cue the virtue signalers below saying,
I would do it.
no, they wouldn't. Mike and Matty, why I left medicine after 10 years to become a YouTuber.
I left medicine potentially forever with a risky backup plan. After grinding 10 years of pre-med, college, grad school, medical school to get those 2 huge letters, MD, after my name, I quit. If I could teleport myself back to my 28-year-old self and make that decision again, I don't know if I would.
It's so interesting to me that 27, 28, 29 tends to be an age that a lot of people make major shifts in their life, and not just in medicine. So in medicine, for many people, they're going to be right around that age that they're early on in their residency training. Now for me, I did a year of plastics and I quit when I was 27. So I started when I was 26. I graduated college at 21, went straight through, did a gap year in med school. So I did 5 years of med school. So 26 is when I started residency. And that makes sense why people in medicine may make these big shifts because they're early on in residency. But in other industries and arenas, you see the same pattern. And it's very fascinating to me. 26 to 29 tends to be this age range where a lot of people in and outside of medicine make huge shifts and are very intentional about designing their future life the way they want. Maybe it's because we no longer feel like kids. We see our 30s looming. Oh my God, adulthood. Is this really what I want? Is this really what I want to do?
2025 might be the perfect time to start something new without taking a huge risk like I did. But to really understand why, we have to rewind the story to 2018, the day I got accepted into medical school.
Dude, the storytelling here is so good. This intro, I'm hooked. I'm captivated. Oh man, I gotta learn how to do this kind of storytelling for my own channels, right? For Med School Insiders and for this.
When I got that acceptance, it was the happiest day of my life. But a few years into training, something felt off. You know that feeling when you go to try a new restaurant that everyone's been hyping up, but after you take the first few bites, you're like, well, this is kind of mid. That's what medical school felt like for me. So I did what any good Asian son would do. I shoved those feelings down as far as I could and convinced myself that I really wanted to be a doctor. And that maybe if I just kept saying that to myself, the spark would come back.
Yeah, you gotta listen to that internal compass. If things are feeling off in medical school, keep in mind, the first 2 years of medical school, many students do not enjoy simply because it's like college on steroids in the sense that you're learning at a much accelerated pace and it's mostly in the classroom. You're not interacting with that many patients. You may have some OSCEs here and there. You may have some physical exam skills. And the subject matter, I think, is very interesting, but it's still, ultimately, you're not interacting with patients and feeling like you're doctoring yet. Normally, most students enjoy 3rd and 4th year more because now you're interacting with patients, you're in the clinic or hospital, in the operating room, and you're several steps closer to feeling like you are doctoring, even though you're still a med student and not actually providing that much value. But one thing I see in certain communities too is a lot of parental pressure to go into medicine in the first place, which is not a good thing and can lead to these kinds of outcomes. And I wonder if he had any parental pressure himself.
But sometimes fate has a funny way of revealing what you really want. And for me, that came during the global crisis of 2020, the pandemic. And it was a strange but perfect time for my brother and I to finally start the YouTube channel that we've always wanted to. While I was supposed to be studying medicine, I found myself staying up late to edit videos and create content. And when school eventually came back, I would spend all of my time in the hospital writing scripts or trying to think of the next video idea I'd do.
Isn't it awesome when you find that thing that is work to some people but feels like play? That's a sign you're on the right track. I can relate to this. Matty is a very creative dude and very artistic. I felt something similar, like a similar kind of draw when it came to the early Med School Insiders videos, which were not nearly as creative and high production quality. Granted, I also was starting that channel it was like the very end of 2016, essentially early 2017 is when we started getting some momentum. And production quality wasn't really my focus. I was also doing medical school and residency while doing the YouTube channel, like Matty here. And with that limited time, I was like, hey, let me just focus on the quality of the content, not the actual visuals. And even that was very exciting to try to explain and teach, because I've always enjoyed teaching and tutoring ever since I was in high school. Yeah, it feels invigorating, and I felt the same way with business, and you guys know how that ended.
By the time graduation came around in 2022, our YouTube channel had generated almost $100,000.
That's really good for the first year.
I did this part-time, mostly for fun, while I was a full-time medical student.
Yeah, what happens if you went full-time in content creation? And it's not just the YouTube AdSense, it's the other things you build around that too.
And it's because of that mindset shift that when the match day emails came out, where I was going to find out where I was going to spend the next 4 years of training, the victory dance that everyone else felt instead hit me like a sucker punch.
Dude, wow. That reminds me that it wasn't a sucker punch, but I had this like a much milder feeling of like, oh man, the fun season is ending, because the end of med school, you have very chill rotations. You generally get the last few months off. And I was spending a lot of that time, building Med School Insiders, and the channel was like blowing up, like 100,000 subs in the first 5 months. And Blue Link had gotten K in funding, and we were really excited about that and growing as well. And I was like in this entrepreneurship season at the end of med school, 6+ months before starting residency. And when it was match week, I was like, oh man, I guess fun season is ending. Granted, I was also excited to go into plastics because, as you guys may have seen from like old videos from before I even started residency, I have always loved it, and it was very enticing and exhilarating and working with my hands. And I still remember my first day, right? The chair of the program, we're in the OR. This is like June, it's not even July yet. So it's literally like the first day, like June 29th or something. He gives me the scalpel, doing a Dupuytren's contracture release, and he's like, don't cut the nerve, and like, it was sick. It was amazing. But it's funny, Matty saying that reminds me that I also felt that this experimental season, which is a lot of fun and has a lot of excitement, is ending. And now I'm following this more structured path in plastic surgery. And I'll have to give up a little bit of the freedom that I'm having right now. Interesting.
And so, quick context for anyone who's not in medicine, match week is like the medical school season finale. On Monday of match week, you find out if you matched anywhere in the country. And on Friday, you learn where you're actually going to spend those next 3 to 7 years of your life with medical training, depending on which specialty you go into.
So Monday is no match day, meaning you now know whether or not you matched, yes or no, binary. If you did not, then you spend the next few days scrambling for a spot. They now call it SOAP, Supplemental Offer and Acceptance Program. And on Friday is the traditional match day. You have the ceremonies, you open the envelope, you find out what that program is.
And for 99.9% of medical students, that Monday is pure relief because it means you finished. You're going to be a doctor.
I think it's actually 97% match rate for USMD. No, 93%. It's not 99.9. It's like mid-90s.
I remember sitting there, staring at my phone at this acceptance to a psychiatry program, but I wasn't feeling the excitement that everyone else was. And so the next hard thing was I had to tell somebody. And the first people I told were, of course, my parents. When I told them I didn't want to do residency, they freaked out, which was, let's be honest, completely justified. Because to them, the numbers, the security doesn't lie, even if it doesn't tell the whole story. In 2024, the average US physician makes around $209,000 a year.
I think it's actually higher than that according to other surveys. I think it's the average physician, when you look at both primary care and specialists, I think is around $350K per year based on most recent data from Medscape, I believe. But again, different methods of collecting the data. Maybe this has like part-time doctors too.
Most people just see that number and they get fixated on it. But if you look past the end results, what most people don't see is that to get there, you need to invest a lot. 4 years of college, paying tuition, 1 to 2 years of post-bac or master's if you're not that competitive, which you're also paying more tuition. And on top of that, 4 years of medical training, of course, paying more tuition during that time. Afterwards, you spend about 4 to 7 years of residency training where you make about $60,000 a year and you work 80+ hours a week. Now, our YouTube business made chump change compared to 2 doctor salaries, right? Not even close. But it was proof of something I realized was much more valuable and important to me. Freedom to try and create something meaningful for myself.
This is the part that a lot of people miss. So I can already sense the virtue signalers in the comments saying, Matty here only cared about the money, or Kevin here only cared about the money. What you have to realize is those who proudly put their stake in the ground and say, I don't care about money. These people, they're not good. Me, I'm good. I'm doing medicine for the right reasons. It's virtue signaling. And it is trying to show that you are a better person. You deserve higher social value and social standing based on the values you have. The issue is that it's bullshit. They're trying to put themselves up and push other people's down in a very contrived kind of way. Now, it's not just money. Money is a very important factor. Why do you see the highest compensated specialties being more competitive than the lower compensated specialties? Money talks, right? But it's not just that. It's also these other factors that Matty's alluding to, right? Things like the freedom to try creating something for himself. He's a very creative dude. You can already feel that the first few minutes into this video. It's about autonomy. It's about impact. It's about work-life balance. It's about various things, not just money. Money is an important factor. If being a doctor paid $20,000 per year, $30,000 per year, guess what? 95% of people wouldn't be doing it. Actually, probably more than 95% wouldn't be doing it, because it would make no sense to put all that time, effort, training, money, debt, etc., to make only 20K on the backside of it. Cue the virtue signalers below saying,
I would do it.
no, they wouldn't. So it's important to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. Money is one important factor, and these other things are also important factors. You're not right or wrong, good or bad for choosing to do medicine or not. There are just pros and cons. It's not a value judgment to say that you quit and you took someone's seed, and these silly value judgments. There's no place for that.
Ironically, the reason I felt confident betting on myself was because of medical training. Any meaningful transformation takes at least 4 to 5 years of focused effort. There are no shortcuts, there are no hacks, just hustle. And so I asked myself, what if I took those same 4 to 5 years that I was going to spend in residency, working 80 plus hours a week for $60K a year?
You're not working 80 plus hour weeks in psychiatry at any program in the US. It's not happening. In other specialties, especially surgical specialties, you are. But psychiatry is definitely a more lifestyle friendly, especially you can actually see day in the life of a psychiatry resident on the channel, linked below. It's a pretty good lifestyle. You're not working anywhere near 80 hours. I forget the numbers off the top of my head, but I think something like 50 hours per week is a more reasonable average.
And instead invested that energy and effort into building something of my own. And I wasn't starting from scratch. It was risky, but this YouTube channel had potential. This online business thing could work. And sure, the stats aren't great. I know my mom pulled them up many times. 4 and 5 businesses failed within the first 5 years, while almost 100% of residents actually become doctors.
The OGs know what I'm going to say next, which is that statistics apply to populations, not to individuals. Meaning that you cannot say that your business has an 80 to 90% chance of failing. You have to take other factors into account. In the same way that you can't point to a certain pre-med and say, hey, you have a 60% chance of not getting into med school this year, because that's the overall odds. 40% of people get in each year, 60% don't, so your odds are 40. Well, no, you have to take into consideration all the factors about their application and who they are. And then you have to look at their application and their approach. And that's what we do at Med School Insiders, right? So if someone does not have an ideal GPA or MCAT and ideal experiences, we still can work with them on crafting a story, crafting a narrative, really boosting their application, doing things in a very strategic way. We use data-driven approaches that are very innovative in the industry and improve their odds. So then that becomes another layer of adjusting the odds for that person, not just who they are and what their experiences are and their GPA and MCAT and their extracurriculars, but then also how do you approach the application? Same thing with business.
In my final year of medical school, every morning I was waking up at the butt crack of dawn to work on YouTube before going into the hospital. When I got home, I wasn't studying, it was YouTube. When my friends or my attendings would ask me about medicine, I'd have this, copy-paste textbook answer about, I want to help people and make a difference and, serve as a psychiatrist in the community or something. But when they asked me about content creation or entrepreneurship, I couldn't shut up about it. I think it was a Tim Ferriss podcast I was listening to where he posed a really insightful question to one of his guests. It was something along the lines of, if there are 2 paths in front of you, which one would you regret more in 20 years not having tried? That's the test, isn't it? Which path makes you come alive? Which one is going to make you talk about it nonstop to anyone who'll listen, anyone who even won't listen? And for me, 9 times out of 10, it was entrepreneurship.
I feel the same way in that life is short, and I figured I have a knack for this thing. Like I had some small early success and some early momentum that I feel like I can make a big impact here. I can have this really exciting life. That's like a one of one. I don't want to knock what plastic surgeons do, because I think what they do is incredible. I think it's the coolest thing in all of medicine, which is why I wanted to become a plastic surgeon at a certain point. I felt like I could be another plastic surgeon, or I could be someone doing something completely unique. And I wanted to do Med School Insiders and Blue Link and MEM and whatever other ideas that come up, because entrepreneurs have a lot of these different ideas and they're excited by various things. So keep that in mind, but also don't fall for the survivorship bias, which is that you hear these crazy stories of people that quit. Jeff Bezos, he leaves Wall Street and starts Amazon, right? There are other people that left Wall Street or left whatever successful or lucrative career in medicine or whatever else and ended up regretting it or not succeeding. But you don't actually fail. You don't actually lose until you decide to give up. So if your business fails, you get back up and you start a new one. or you figure out what didn't work the first time and you try it again. So there's two sides to even the survivorship bias, which is that, first of all, great success is not guaranteed, but even if you fail at first, that doesn't mean you're going to fail forever.
Now, here's where things get really interesting, especially if you're watching this in 2025, because the rules of the entrepreneurship game have completely flipped. 3 years ago, I had to make a binary choice: go all in on medicine or all in on entrepreneurship. But we're living in a time now where AI and technology have advanced so far that they can handle almost all the grunt work that used to take creators and entrepreneurs years to learn and build systems around.
You could have done that in the past too, right? Like, it sounds like he dabbled with it earlier. I dabbled with it earlier before leaving. Now it's just even easier, so much easier with AI.
And it's that reason why, like I said at the beginning of the video, I don't know if I had to make that same decision again today, that I would make the same one. I'm not gonna lie, I do miss some aspects of medicine. I actually really enjoyed talking to patients and using my doctor skills. 3 years later now, I've definitely lost a lot of my skills and diagnostic training.
Yeah, man. I miss working with my hands.
I'm not going to lie and say I've never had my doubts. Of course I have. But there's this quote that I really loved that I thought about deeply when making this decision, and it still drives me today. Of all the words of tongue and pen, the saddest are, it might have been. In 2025, you don't have to be stuck. You don't have to quit with debt and loans and move back into your parents' office and bootstrap for 2 years as a doctor like I did and try your best to make it work. That's how I felt. That's my story. It's a weird one, but I'm glad it's out there now. And if it helps even one person think a little bit differently about what life can be, I'll be happy.
There is this growing trend that's becoming more and more publicly visible on YouTube, which is these medical trainees or attendings, right? So you have med students, you have residents, you have attending physicians who are not fully aligned and fully happy with being in medicine. And it's a big pain point for a lot of people. And given how big of an issue it is and how common this is and how widespread, and I've had tons of conversations with various people over the years, what I'm working on is this very exciting new project to help those who feel misaligned in medicine. And that means either changing what they're doing in medicine to help with alignment. It can mean even swapping specialties or changing practice types. It can even be leaving medicine altogether. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, if you are in medicine yourself and feeling misaligned, then check the link in the description below, because I have a very exciting new project I'm working on. Can't fully tell you about, but you can learn a little bit more with the link down below. Super cool video, Matty. Let me know what you guys think with a comment down below, and I'll see you in that next one.